The founder of Russia's Wagner mercenary group says Ukrainian forces are putting up fierce resistance defending Bakhmut. Russian troops are attempting to encircle the strategic city and claim their first major prize in months of fighting. Since August last year, Russian and Ukrainian forces have been embroiled in a fierce and bloody battle for Bakhmut. The city has come under relentless attack as Russia seeks to expand the territory it controls in the east of Ukraine. But the battle for Bakhmut has taken on an importance far greater than the strategic and military value of the city itself.
Burnt ruins. That's how Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Bakhmut in December. For months, the small city in eastern Ukraine has been the centre of the most protracted battle of Russia's year-long war. Both sides have poured troops and other resources into a savage fight. The exact number of casualties is unknown, but Western officials say hundreds of Russian and Ukrainian forces were killed and wounded on the worst days. Military analysts say its capture would have little strategic value. So why have Russia and Ukraine been so invested in winning the battle for Bakhmut? For Russia, it became a political imperative to show some success on the battlefield after Ukraine recaptured large parts of the Kharkiv region and the port city of Kherson.
I think they want a big picture, some sort of victory, any victory that they can get. I don't think it's a strategic victory. I think they want to show something, some progress on the ground.
The capture of Bakhmut would be Ukraine's biggest military loss in months. It could also set up Russian forces for assaults on bigger cities, though they would still have to get past a heavily fortified Ukrainian defensive line. The fall of Bakhmut would also be a success for the paramilitary Russian Wagner group and its leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, potentially strengthening his position compared to rivals within the Russian military. In Ukraine, the slogan "Hold Bakhmut" has become a national rallying cry. Zelensky visited the front lines in the city just before his trip to Washington in December.
Know that this is not just Bakhmut. It's a symbol, the Bakhmut fortress. We do not want Russian flags on the ruins of fortresses.
The loss of Bakhmut would be a serious symbolic and psychological blow. But Ukraine could have made a grim calculation by forcing Russia to expend enormous resources in the battle for the city, meaning a Russian victory would be hollow, considering the manpower and equipment lost.
For more on the battle for Bakhmut, let's bring in John Spencer, Chair of Urban Warfare Studies at Madison Policy Forum. John, why is Bakhmut so important for both sides?
I mean, I think it's so important because, like many urban battles of the past, to include the greatest urban battle of history, the Battle of Stalingrad, is that once fighting begins, they end up taking on a political importance. So President Zelensky has visited Bakhmut, and like you said, Bakhmut Hold has become a national rally cry. And Putin hasn't had a win in 6 months. So like major urban battles of past history, it's taken on a political value for both sides. It has no strategic value, as in it won't help achieve a strategic goal for either side, no operational value, and very little tactical value other than a stepping stone to like Kramatorsk or Sloviansk. But it really has no value for either side. But people have to remember war is a human endeavor, and war is just politics by other means. It has immense political value for both sides.
Now, Ukrainian forces are coming under relentless attacks. How much longer can they hold out? How much longer are they willing to hold out?
Yeah, there's some variables that we just don't know. We know there's a great danger of the remaining defenders being encircled, but this is not the Battle of Mariupol. They have not been encircled yet, although the north and the east are under daily attacks, like 80 attacks a day. But I believe the Ukrainians are assuming some risk, and as long as the Russians want to throw just waves of untrained manpower at the defenders, and they can continue to keep a door out of Bakhmut for those defenders. There's a saying, don't interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake. And if Russia wants to commit 30,000 dead, 40,000 dead to take this piece of ground that doesn't have any real military value, I think that they're going to continue to do that until the last moment.
Now, we're talking about urban warfare there. In general, who do you think has the upper hand when it comes to urban warfare in Ukrainian towns and cities, the defenders or the Russian attackers?
That's a hard one. Again, every city is different, right? But usually the defender has an advantage, but there's a time component. A defender has an advantage for a certain amount of time. And in this situation, I mean, look how long Ukraine has held that piece of ground, that urban ground, and using, the concrete and all the unique features of the city to hold it for so long after, against such greater numbers. So usually the defender has an advantage. And I think in this case they do, but that's only for a certain amount of time, and that time is unfortunately running down.
Now, what's then is the ultimate goal for Ukraine in Bakhmut? To hold the city, actually, or to tie down Russian forces?
I think it's really neither. I think it's hold it and kill as many Russian soldiers that want to advance across the open area as possible until it's no longer feasible. I mean, if you could get the Russian force like they did a few months ago to culminate, when the initial Wagner prisoners and rapists were sent against Bakhmut, they culminated and couldn't advance anymore. There is a slight chance that Ukraine could do that, but it's probably more likely they'll hold it for a certain, longer, and then eventually pull back the Ukrainian forces to those defensive lines, really that are not far from the city, and Russia would be, ruling the rubble as they like to do.
Now, what happens if they do? If they rule the rubble, if Russian troops seize Bakhmut, what's next for them?
They'll have to refit and reorganize. They can't just keep on advancing. The Ukrainian defensive line, and they have shown superior intelligence and superior planning. I'm sure there's a plan in place to pull Ukrainian forces back and strengthen Ukrainian lines and to stop Russia where they're at. And the only downfall is that Russia will claim this 6-month, 30,000 soldier victory over a town that doesn't mean anything to either side, other than it's Ukrainian land, and of course all their land matters.
John, briefly, please. Lots of discussion about heavy weaponry being delivered by the West. Would heavy weaponry, like the tanks, the main battle tanks, the German ones, would they make a difference there?
Yes, they would. I mean, not necessarily the piece of equipment, but a formation armed with that equipment, because usually you give tanks and you form a tank brigade or a division, and that would absolutely help. And resupplies of Western weapons like the rockets and everything would have an impact. So that time component is here in this battle, where the sooner those Western weapons can get there, the better, and Russia wants to prevent that.
John Spencer there, Chair of the Urban Warfare Studies at Madison Policy Forum. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.